Welcome to Nova House, where investments generate passive income while enriching lives. Now, why choose Nova House? Nova House properties are cash flowing with expedited money returns and 100% backed by secure property assets. Investors benefit from property appreciation and the new remote work visa, positioning them at the forefront of Costa Rica's booming remote work tourism. With a safe, politically stable environment and a high standard of living, Costa Rica stands out in Central America. Join the high-growth tourism market in one of the world's most popular destinations. Nova House, the key to a prosperous and fulfilling future in Costa Rica. Invest in your future, Nova House. www.novahouse.com. That's NOVAHAUS.com.
Coming up today on the Nice Guys on Business.
And what you're experiencing when you take things on is the joy of creativity, the same joy you did when you were a little child or the first time a little child rides a bike. No one can replace the joy of getting airborne. Even though you've fallen many times, bam, you are talking about what all human beings have. And I've lived in bush country of Africa. All over the world, I've seen this. It's a natural thing to us. You're doing what all of us. So I'm giving people the tools to get back to where they were as young children growing up as creative people. And I can share with them some personal things they can do in their lives. I call the secret sauce of creativity to restore that natural creative part of us. And you will get the joy, even though they're not easy, solving problems that you wouldn't get any other way. It's the highest form of happiness, self-actualization that you did things that were challenging and accomplished it. So what you're doing is exactly what human beings are hardwired to do.
Okay, move my appointment with Mrs. Bellows back 90 minutes. What? Oh, just snake a tube down her nose. I'll be there right after I listen to a few more episodes of the Nice Guys on Business. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, welcome, Nice Guy community, and welcome Dan Steininger. He's renowned for his expertise in fostering innovation and growth in companies of all sizes, from leading major financial institutions to launching successful startups and teaching at Arizona State University. I'm interested in talking about that. I was always that C student, Dan. You would have hated me in your class. Dan's diverse career makes him a fountain of knowledge on business innovation and all things creative. Join us as we unpack his unique insights and learn from his journey. Dan, I'm excited to chat with you. Welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thanks, Doug. And this will be the first business interview I've ever done where I'm considered a nice guy. I mean, when you're a business leader, I'm a business leader, a nice guy. That's one of those disconnects that people don't quite get.
You know, that's a really great starting point. I really didn't think about that as it relates to innovation or nice or the C-suite or any of that. But, you know, as I was growing up in quote unquote corporate America, I was always taught that being a nice guy really showed weakness. And you know, when you talk about bringing that into the innovation space, you know, I always think innovation, it's like such an open, free-flowing conversation among people around the conference room table where there's no bad ideas. It's like, let's brainstorm. Everything is a yes and rather than a no but. And so you've got to be nice, I think, in order to be successful in business today. It seems like innovation and being nice go hand in hand. What do you say to that?
Well, I think you're right. And the problem is that coming out of World War II, we had the paradigm in American business that, you know, the generals ran it. It was a business model coming out of World War II. And then you had people like Jack Welch at GE, who Neutron Jack, you'd hardly consider him nice. And even, you know, more successful business people, is Elon Musk nice? But the truth of the matter is that if you're a genius like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, you don't have to be nice. And they weren't and aren't. But for the rest of us mortals, if you want people to give their best, you really do have to be a nice person. You really have to care about them and you want their ideas. And you're not going to get it if you're just going to be a mean guy. So you're right. Yeah.
Let's take a dive into some innovation definitions and the idea behind it and how it actually fits into the corporate world. It was previously that rule by intimidation was the way to go. And, you know, as you enter into the the startup world and technology, where we need everybody's ideas in order to make things go, innovation is key. So let's start with, how do you define innovation, or what does innovation mean to you, and where does it fit into really into corporate America, or the corporate world today?
Well, first of all, I promise people are listening to this that if you stay tuned, I'm going to give you some tips how to solve your challenges in life or your problems at work or otherwise, with the tools I'll share with you. So the tips I give you will be immediate benefit to you personally and at work.
Oh, nice.
So I'll give you an example. I'm in my youth all through summer. I'm born and was raised in Wisconsin. I would head out on the Great Northern Train to Glacier Park, Montana.
Oh,
And I had a summer job working. It's beautiful, crown jewel, the Rocky Mountains. And you come across the plains of eastern Montana. It's flat. And you wake up in the morning on this train, and all of a sudden you see the Rocky Mountains emerge from the plains. And it's awe-inspiring. And you get off on the train at Glacier Park, and you're smelling that fresh mountain air, and you're thinking, John Denver country. And it's spectacular. Well, I've been there for a couple of weeks working. I started reading the journals of Lewis and Clark. And what did they think when they first saw those mountains emerging from the plains? There's a problem. We've got to get around those mountains, or we're never going to get to the Pacific. So that's where innovation comes from. It's you start with a problem or a challenge, whether it's professionally or personally, and you're going to need to be creative to do it. Now they ended up hiring Sacagawea, a woman who had grown up in those mountains, and a guy who got them through it. But that's what mountains are our personal challenges. So I say to your listeners, if you don't have a problem, you don't have a challenge, just go to a bar and enjoy yourself. Or as the Irish would say, trouble is just around the corner. So my point is that, look, from us mortals who all have problems, we're here to share some ideas on how you can creatively solve those problems, both personally or professionally. So there you go. That's the backstory.
All right. And what I had said to you right before I hit record is, and I love the idea that you wanted to give all of your goodies away, all of the secrets away. And we will touch upon how to, how to create some of this in your solve your own problems in your life based upon the content that we're going to create today. But stay tuned as we get into Dan's content. We're going to give you an opportunity for you to actually opt into something that he has, so that you can get free from him some more details and actually have conversation with Dan if you decide to go in that direction. So this doesn't just apply to the corporate world; it can apply to personal world as well. You mentioned the word problem, and problem always means that there's hopefully a solution on the other side of that. So how does innovation help us solve problems, either in the corporate sector or in our personal world?
Okay, let's start with the personal, because everyone listening you have personal problems, and if you don't, you're not a human being. So okay, so I'll give you a quick example. I like to hike, and around Phoenix, where I have a winter home, I was hiking last spring, and beautiful March day, and I've got hiking poles, and I heard a rattle, and instantaneous at the same time, a rattlesnake bit me on the back of the leg. Now, at first, it feels like a pinprick, like a mosquito bite. I turned to my wife and said, and by the way, I turned around because he hit me from behind, and he slithered across the trail, and this rattlesnake was looking at me, I nailed you, buddy. And I had 2 hiking poles. I was thinking of whacking him. Anyhow, and by the way, I'm sharing this story because at least 4 to 5 times in my life, I've almost met the Grim Reaper. And if it weren't for some of my creativity skills, I wouldn't even be doing this interview. Anyhow, she called 911, and while I'm waiting, I told her I'd been a Boy Scout. In fact, I was an Eagle Scout. I said, what are we things we learned when you've been bitten by a rattlesnake? You need to suck out the venom. She gave me the look like, divorce first. But I said, fine, but I'm going to write my funeral ration now and say I died because my wife didn't do this. So sure enough, she did it. And eventually the EMTs came. They checked my vitals. I was able to walk to the helicopter, which is about a quarter mile away. And the captain comes with the helicopter comes on and says, hi, I'm Captain Kirk. I said, if you're Captain Kirk, I'm the Easter Bunny kind of day I'm having. So anyhow, they helicoptered me to the Banner Hospital, the big hospital system in Phoenix. And I was visited by the top toxicologist in the state. And she said, the reason I wanted to visit you, your case is unusual. I said, I don't like to hear that. And she said, no, it's good news. You had less venom in you than the average rattlesnake bite. And by the way, you can die from rattlesnake or get seriously disabled or have limbs have to be cut off. Because your leg is starting to swell. It's terrible. The pain starts to set in. And I told her a story about that. And she said, well, our longitudinal studies don't necessarily, say that and yada, yada. I said, well, then how come I have less venom in me? And how come the ranchers and the miners and the cowboys all settled the West survived when they didn't have antivenom? So that at least reduced the impact, and I didn't get anything amputated, although the recovery is always painful. So what I'm saying is that if you have this sense of creativity and you can do it even in emergencies, it will be of great help for you. So what I'm going to share with you are things that all your listeners can apply instantly, immediately in their lives, and more importantly, and just as importantly, professionally at work. So there you
All
go.
right, all right, I love it. So where do we even start? So is starting at just the recognition of a problem that needs to be solved?
Precisely. Tip number one is, okay, you have a problem or a challenge. Now, what Americans tend to do, and I have a great friend who grew a worldwide company from nothing. He used to call Americans shoot, ready, aim. There's this tendency for us to jump to solutions right away, rather than take the time to understand the problem. Now, for all your listeners who've had little kids or grandkids, they all know that when they're growing up, your son or daughter says, Dad or Mom, can I have a monkey? Well, you can have a monkey. Well, and you start giving reasons. Well, what do? They don't give up. They keep asking why. So whatever the problem might be, whether it's a rattlesnake or an emergency at work or a revenue problem you're having or something you can't solve, an HR problem, whatever it is, spend the time to understand the problem. And that means a lot of time. You have to, what I call, embrace uncertainty. Be willing to say, I don't know the answer, and refuse to jump to quick solutions. That's not easy for all of us because we want to get a problem solved fast. So I remember my first, I always say I'm a recovering lawyer. I went from the law practice to running a major company, one of my clients. And I had been educated at a very good Eastern law school, but I was not. I had friends at the Harvard Business School, but I was not a trained business leader. So my very first meeting of 11 vice presidents, the question came up, what's our strategic plan? And there was a long silence. And I said, what's a strategic plan?
I love that you were able to say that, because that oftentimes is the challenge right out of the get-go. You want to speak their lingo automatically.
And you can imagine 11 vice presidents, oh boy, we got a live one on our hands. But once they realized I was serious, guess what happened? And I finally said, look, if we're going to have one, you're going to have to do it. And suddenly the responsibility started moving to their shoulders rather than the CEO to come up with all the solutions. So by even the leader, the number one leader of the organization can embrace uncertainty, that sends a signal to the whole organization. The really, really great leaders, Adam Grant wrote a book called Think Again. The really great leaders are characterized, he said, as having confident humility, meaning we're confident we get the problem solved, but I'm humble enough to know I don't have the solutions.
Let me ask this, though. How do you, as a leader of an organization of any size, whether it's a company that has 5 people in it or 500,000 people in it, how does a leader come across as not knowing an answer, but being okay with not knowing the answer and still being able to lead with confidence? Because a lot of times the fact that, I'm not saying that the leader has to know all of the solutions to the problem, but just the recognition of the problem sometimes is a challenge for a leader to get down and share that, because they've lost some confidence from their followers.
Doug, well, that question's right on point and exactly the problem we all face. There's an expectation that leaders know the answer. And I say, if you're Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, you do know the answer. But for the rest of us mortals, the way you do that as a leader is don't preach. Don't think, oh, I'm humble and I'm going to listen. No. You put in place a set of tools, which I'm sharing with your audience, that will say, I'm following the rules and you're going to follow the rules. And we do this, we'll get there together. So rule number one is we're going to spend time defining the problem.
Got it.
And spending time. And that means, I would say, and what you do, first of all, is you create a list of the causes of the problem. What are all of the potential causes of this problem? What contributed to it? For example, if you get in a car and it won't start, wow, and it won't start. Okay, well, did I leave the key in the house because it's a fob? Or do I have gas in the tank? Is my battery dead? So you start to go through all of the issues that might have caused why your car. That's just a simple example. It didn't start. You apply that same thing to business problems. Don't jump to any conclusions. Start early on to spend the time. The 5 whys, keep at it. And what you do is correct. It's an Italian mathematician called Pareto. Create a Pareto chart. In order of importance, what are the key contributors to that problem? And start to list them in order. So you can call it a fishbone diagram or cause and effect diagram. Spend the time to understand the problem.
Got it. Okay, so first thing we got to do, obviously, is recognize that there is a problem. All right, now what's the next? Already, I'm getting into the solution mode here because I keep thinking, okay, let's get to all the solutions here. What happens after we recognize a problem?
Yes, and one other quick story to emphasize: you need to ask yourself, and it may be something. Let's say a personal thing. You've been terminated. You got a divorce problem. You got a troubled kid. I don't all the personal things that can happen to us. Hardest thing question for all of us is, did I contribute to what's happening? And why that is important? Well, guess what? I'll give a true story. And when I was in law school, I was researching a case that came out of San Francisco, one of your cities to the north. And it was in the Federal District Court in San Francisco. What happens is Japan Airlines flew into San Francisco's airport. Well, it's on the bay. And Captain Oso was captaining that plane, and it came in like miles short of the runway in the water.
Wow.
Now it was such a good landing, the passengers didn't even know that it was in the water until they saw sailboats going by their windows. They were able to extract the plane. No one got injured, but of course the FAA conducts a hearing in federal court. That's how I got to read the transcript. And so the hearing begins, and he gets sworn. How do you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth? So help you God, Captain Oso. Yes, sir. Okay, Captain Oso, we're going to take testimony. In 6 months, we'll render a verdict. So why, in your judgment, did this tragedy occur? And there's a long pause, and then Captain Oso said, how you Americans say it? Captain Oso, screw up. 15 minutes later, the hearing was over. So all of you who have been in corporate America, work for organizations, we all know about CYA, we all know about making excuses. Step back and ask, did I contribute in any way? So that's part of that whole analysis of what do I really understand the problem, and then put it in order of problems. I'll give one other example of why this helps. If you really understand the problem. True story. The company had a large building, and at 5 o'clock, the elevators, there were three elevators, and they were completely jammed because people was all leaving. And the facilitators manager proposed adding, several $1 million worth of elevator shafts, which is not easy in a large building. And they spent the time to understand the problem before they contributed the money or spent the money in their budget. They found out that with various tenants throughout the building, all departed at the same time. Once they understood that's the cause of the problem, not the lack of elevators,
right?
They staggered the departure times. Guess what? They saved millions in elevator construction, and the problem got solved. So that's why I have people spend the time to understand that problem, as un-American as it may seem. All right. Now,
great stories, by the way. Either with the captain of the airplane, I screwed up, or staggering the hours of people leaving, saving big dollars, and not having to actually put in another elevator bank. Great problem recognition, actually working through it to figure out the solution.
And even if let's say you're burned out at your job, or you think you are, what's causing it? Is it you want more money, or you just burned out from doing it, or you want to travel more? Who knows what? So there's a stress too much. So getting the priority of the problems you have to face, and then attacking the first cause is number one. All right, now you know the problem. You know what part of that problem is first up needs to be solved. Now you put in number 3, which you referenced, ideation stage. Here's the problem with ideation.
Wait, I missed number 2. What was number 2?
Number 2 was putting that problem in the causes in order.
Sorry. Okay, just to make sure.
The Pareto chart. The Italian method. The Pareto charts. Okay, we got those all in order. Now you're going to attack number 1. So, okay, now we get to the ideation and brainstorming. The problem we have throughout America, and since I work with the captains of industry all over the country, I see this time and time again. Brainstorming is a disaster. It is really doomed to fail the way it's conducted. And I'll explain why. In Harvard Business School does an annual thing where your students in this class are told their plane has crashed in Alaska, and they're given a list of things they have to pick from to survive. Then they've got 2 hours to pick those items, or that's it. The plane's going to be gone, it'll have sunken, and now you've got to survive in the wilderness. And then they play back and debrief as they watch themselves in this meeting. Well, as they watched it, they noticed one of the students was saying nothing. And finally, when they finished the debriefing, they turned to him, why didn't you say anything? He said, well, I tend to be on the shy side, and I don't want to speak up in a group. Oh, well, okay, now's your turn. What do you think of what we selected? And he said, oh, you won't last 2 days with those items. And they said, well, what makes you say that? He said, I was raised in the wilderness of Alaska. I know what you need to survive. What that tells you is, and this is true, almost 50% of the American public are introverts. Susan Crane wrote a wonderful book called Quiet. People have great ideas, but they don't necessarily want to speak up at a brainstorming session. So what you have is extroverts will dominate. People don't want to get in tussle. They're afraid to talk, whatever it is.
Right.
So what I suggest at work, what you do is if you're the team facilitator or leader, you define the problem, you understand it, and now you share with everybody an agreement on what that problem is. And now you ask for their ideas in the form of an email that's circulated to the team. So those who are shy will have their ideas heard, and people can think about those ideas before the meeting actually occurs. And that enhances the quality of what you're going to hear. You're not going to be dominated by someone who's got the loudest mouth, because you know something? Emails are quiet. They don't make any noise.
Understood.
And now you're going to see a much more robust. And here's the most important thing above all else. I want everyone who's listening today to ask themselves, where do your best ideas come to you? Do they come in meetings at work? Where are the things that you do differently? When do they come to you?
I'll tell you, my best ideas come to me when I'm actually out with my girlfriend hiking, and we just happen to not be talking about anything related to it. And suddenly something pops into my brain, whether it's a solution of a problem that I have in business or an add-on to something I'm already doing.
Bingo. Outside, Steve Jobs was famous for taking his walks. I get him. I'm a swimmer. I had to actually get note pages at the end of that you can write on it with, and they won't run. People talk about ideas coming in a shower, or they'll wake up in the morning and there's ideas just spill out. When they're meditating, they don't come to you for the most part at work. Right. They come to you when you're away from work. And that's why before a brainstorming session, everybody's given a chance to be alone, be quiet. And here's why. The mechanics of your brain, the hippocampus, which is right here in the frontal cortex, it's got an executive function in it that's going high speed all day long, taking in thousands of images, advertisement, oncoming cars, people. What happens when you're quiet or taking a walk as you did, or you're in a shower or you're swimming or whatever it might be, is it turns off. When you're dreaming, that's why we get these bizarre dreams idea and even nightmares, because our executive function is turned off, and that gets the right side of our creative side emerges. And that's why people wake up in the middle of the night with ideas. This is not accidental. It's the way our brain functions, because you have to turn off that executive function before creativity emerges. So
this is great. All right, we've covered 3 of these so far, and if you're taking notes, or if you're just listening and you're not taking notes, no worries at all. We're going to give you access to these 5 steps after the interview is over, or after the conversation is done. We'll make sure you get a link in the show notes so that you can have access to this as well. All right, keep moving. Step number 4.
Okay, I'm going to still say a little bit more on the brainstorming, because we're getting close to done.
Do it.
Step 3. If you go back anthropologically to our ancient people running around in the plains of Africa, that's where we started. We went to Europe. This is before email, in the hunter-gatherer stage. Anthropologists had figured this out. Before texting, before cell phones.
Wait, there was life before pagers and texting and email?
Yeah, it was. Probably they were a lot calmer. Anyhow, you're coming across the plain and you see a group of people or even an individual coming at you with their spears. And the first question in your mind is, are they friend or enemy? How would you know that without a way to communicate before it might be too late? So our ancestors developed gesticulations that tended to be humorous for the most part, to say, I'm a nice person, don't spear me. Okay, whatever they did a crazy dance. Who knows what they did? Sang off key. I can do that easily. But in any event, so what happens in that, we are hardwired when we do humorous things to move from our left analytical brain, where everyone is right now, into our right hemisphere, the right side of the source of creativity. In your meetings, insist on humor, insist on putting it in the agenda. You got enough YouTube clips and everything you can be playing. You can do TikTok if you're still around. Who knows what? To get people laughing. Not only does it unleash the right side of the brain, it reduces the class problems between people. You got a CEO there, or you got hybrid mucky mucks, and you're just an ordinary person. How do you open up? Humor creates and breaks through all this. I have a nice home. It's have some people working on the street with the city. I go out. If I'm in Wisconsin, they're looking at me like, yeah, here's this guy. He's got this house. And I come up to him and say, did you see how the Packers played last night? Can you imagine? What were they thinking when Brett Favre threw that interception? Bam. 2 minutes later, we're getting along wonderfully. So humor has to be put into those ideation sessions. So, okay. So there we go.
That's perfect, though. Perfect. I got it.
And now, once you've got those ideas, keep posting them up, Post-its. If you're home alone, whatever, put them on the refrigerator and don't try to do it one session. Keep coming back. You go off, you go for another walk with your girlfriend, whatever it is. Keep putting those Post-its. And why? A Harvard Business School study showed that if you put 10 or 15 ideas in play, you'll get 2 or 3 good ones. If you put 50, maybe 100, you'll get 20 or 30. The more, the better. As many ideas you can come up with. All right. So that finishes. Now you've got all the tips. You've got the Post-its. You're coming out your ears. Now what do you do? How do you select what you should do? Let me give you an example. You got to test. You got to test what you think are going to work. I mean, some might be sim pairs. Otherwise, you have to have small experiments. Good example. There was a small company in Australia. It wanted to get in the wine market. Well, the wine market's what they call the red ocean. You've got high expanse, a lot of sophisticated names, and it's just a crowded field. If you're going to a wine store, you're going to see 1,000 different bottles. Okay. What they did is they went to beer drinkers and mixed drinkers and asked them, why don't you drink wine? Well, it's expensive. We don't quite understand these labels. In fact, we don't even like the taste, and it's confusing. All right. So they introduced a simple product, two selections, red or white, priced it much lower than the average wine bottle, and probably made it a little easier to drink, taste-wise. That wine became the fastest selling wine in the history of the wine industry, and it's called Yellowtail. Yeah, and you will see it in your grocery stores today. So FDR, at the height of the Depression, said, we're embarking on bold experiments. He never said, I have the answers. Mm-hmm. And everybody understood that. So bold experiments. And what I would say is, this is the other thing to put in place is a simple, I want you to step back. For all your listeners, think you want to buy a car. Now you've been to 5 or 6 dealerships. Every car feels pretty good.
Yep.
What one should you buy? All right, step back and ask yourself, what are the criteria by which I want to make this decision? Am I most concerned about price? Am I most concerned about mileage? So electric is on my radar. Am I strong on safety? What are my biggest criteria? In order that you want to buy, what are you looking for in the car you buy? And put those in a list and rank them. The most important, if it's cost, that gets a 5. If it's mileage, it gets the 5. Whatever it is. And then you put a weighted number on each of them. So you have put the cars that you're looking at the top, the criteria on the side, and you put the numbers on each of them. And then guess what? You add them up on the bottom. It's going to point you, not scientific, in the direction you probably should go. Because that car...
This was actually how I selected my second wife, Dan. You did a very
yeah. You need to write a book on that. How I selected my first wife and second wife and lived to tell the story.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be cute. So anyhow, that's and one other thing in making the final decision, you're going to test. Some you're going to give a stop sign to, a red. Others are going to be pretty element. They get the green, and off and blue are the ones you're going to test and spend some more time on. One other tip, and I think your audience can relate to this, because all of us has been through this, and I've seen countless people do initiatives and end up regretting them for the rest of their lives. True story. Early in my career, I'm shifting from law to being a CEO of a company. I attended every seminar on the planet, and a gentleman, a professor from George Washington University, had a topic called A Trip to Abilene. And he was describing a time when he went to his wife's town in the panhandle of Texas. It's Texas. It's not maybe 30, 40 miles from Abilene in the panhandle. And he said, in the afternoon, we're sitting around the front porch, and we had he called it a swamp cooler going. It's wet hay with a fan. It's pretty miserably hot. And Granddad apparently said, who'd like to go to dinner tonight? Maybe in Abilene. And Jerry said, I turned to my wife and she said, well, honey, what you want is what I want to do. And he's thinking, well, I want to do what you want to do. And now, meantime, grandma's lacing up her shoes. So they all end up in the old Packard, granddad's Packard. It costs the Panhandle. There's no air conditioning in his car, and the dust is coming in. It's an absolutely miserable trip. They get to Abilene, ended up at the Greasy Spoon Cafe, had a dinner. No one liked it. And sure enough, afterwards, had packed in the car, again, across the Panhandle of Texas, dust, heat, you name it, is miserable. They got home at 8 o'clock that night, and they all sitting on that same front porch. And it was an entire hour before anyone could speak. They were so miserable. And finally, someone said, whose idea was it to go to Abilene? And so I said, well, Granddad, it was yours. And he said, no, I didn't want to go to Abilene. I was just throwing out ideas.
Right.
And then Jerry turned to his wife and said, well, honey, I thought you I thought you wanted to go. And then meantime, Grandma starts crying. So here's fast forward from that to the Watergate hearings. Sam Erwin, senator, graduate from my law school, Boston University, was grilling Charles Colson, who was in on the break-in of the Democratic Court headquarters, and asked him this: at any time prior to that break-in, did anyone think or say, maybe this is a dumb idea? And he said, no. And he said, no. What happens if someone would have said it? We wouldn't have done it. So whatever you come up with in the White House and in the military, they create murder teams, literally called murder teams, to attack the idea you're going to do, to look for what is the negative, what trouble I can get into doing this. Because you don't want to leap before you've at least tested it and gotten the potential negative feedback. So those are the tips. Those are the ideas of how to ensure that the initiatives you take to solve those mountains, those challenges that are inevitable in running a business. Should we do AI? Should we do synthetic biology? Should we do robotics? These are the things that if a CEO or leader, any leader of facility puts it in place, you will get maximum input from the team. So those are the tips. And again, if the audience wants to, now I can share with you one other thing. The tips of what I call the secret sauce of creativity.
All right, hold on. Don't go too fast, because what I want to do before you dive into those, Dan, is I want to drop back for a second, and I want to put these tips aside for just a quick second, because at some point in your law career, into your CEO-dom, into your C-suite consulting, into all of that, at some point you had to realize that this actually was your gift. This was the thing that you were meant to do with your life, and this is where the consulting was going to really kick up, to the next level for you in your life. When did you realize that this was your thing? Because it wasn't when you were practicing law, because it didn't sound like did you ever actually practice, or did you?
I practiced for a decade. I love law. I didn't even want to leave the law practice. It was a wonderful career.
When did the path get a little bit, the fork in the road? When did you experience that first fork in the road for yourself?
I think, having to make the decision whether to leave something you've been trained for, law practice, and take on being the CEO of a financial institution that had major problems. But for all the audience, you can write this down and put it on your wall and always remember it. Life is lived forward. I didn't make this up. Life is lived forward and understood backward. So but now I can look back and see where I was trending, and why, when the opportunity to become the CEO, at first I was dead against it, but then reached out. It was the problem. It was my mountain. Should I do it? Should I consider it? Do I leave a law practice that I loved? And reached out to a lot of people, got a lot of good advice. So and the times I've almost met the Green Reaper, including one time I spent 2 years in the Peace Corps in East Africa as a teacher, ended up with malaria, didn't even know I had it, and there are no doctors in our village. Find relief at a mission, because we didn't have a doctor, but they knew what to do with me. So looking back at life, you can see in hindsight where those things evolved. Obviously, I love law, but the opportunity to play at a higher playing field where I can help a lot more people and have an impact on the world. At that, I didn't know it at the time, but that's what's motivating me. So for your listeners, understand you may not know what you're going through or why you're doing it, but many years hence, you'll be able to look back and say, now I get why I did that. So there you go. So no easy answer to those.
And no, there's never an easy answer. I was just curious when you realized, but I loved the expression that you said. I don't think I've ever heard of it. Life is lived
forward and
understood
backward.
And It makes so much sense. I think about the steps that I had in my career. I spent 30 years as a live event entertainer, as a DJ, and it was not until 2013 when I came up with an idea of I want to teach all the stuff that I learned in this 30-year career as a live event entertainer and teach the business of putting more people into live event entertaining and teaching them customer service. I wrote this book, I launched the podcast, and then my second career, I don't want to say I'm transitional or I'm flaky or anything. I've had a career for 30 years and I've had this career for 9 years now. And I've so enjoyed and loved it. But you're 100% right. If you were to ask me at the time, I could never have looked forward and saw where I was heading. But if I look back, I understand it completely. And I think
because you knew instinctively you were developing a core competency in a new segment of the business that you knew you had it, but that didn't mean you knew you were going to succeed at it. But it was enough to make you take that leap. Now
100%.
Looking back, you realize, well, I'm leveraging, and I'll golf with guys who sold their companies for 20, 30 million. And I'll say to them, so what are you up to? And they'll say, oh, not much of anything. And then when I ask them, well, how do you think that's going to work out? And so you're not leveraging the abilities and the wisdom that you have for so many years. You decided to leverage it. But at the time, you didn't know if your leap was going to work. Now, looking back,
100%, 100%. Well, the way that I, always look at things is I'm not saying this from an ego perspective, but I'm only going to do it. What's the expression? Don't do anything half-assed. No, I don't do it half-assed. I do it full-assed, or I don't do it at all. So for me, I'm full-ass into everything that I do. And it's not just that with my career. It's that way with projects around the house. I want everything to be done. I don't say I'm a perfectionist, but I want everything to be done and done really well because I want to be proud of it. I want to leave my mark on my property, on my career, on my legacy with so great lessons learned so that my kids can have an example. And for me, I think that if you let life happen as a victim, I think that if life happens to you, no, I like to make life happen. And that's just kind of how I led my life.
And Doug, I've been asked many times, are you born creative or you develop? And I would say to everybody is born creative, all of us. And you say, well, why do I say that? If you've all had kids or grandkids, when they were growing up, did you have to tell them they had to learn to crawl? Did you have to tell them they had to learn to walk? And what's the most complex activity they ever did? And it's all over by 5. They learned to talk. Right. You didn't have to bribe them. You didn't have to threaten them. None of it. They did it naturally. And I said, well, what happens? So we are born creative. We want to control our environment. That's natural to us. What happens to us? Well, we go to school. Are we paid? Are we rewarded for being creative? No, rewarded, right, for getting the right answer. And then you go to work. And then you don't say to your boss, I appreciate that, but I'm not going to do it that way. I've got a different way of doing this. How far are you going to get? So our creativity is beaten out of us.
Beaten out of us. I was going to say that. Beaten out of us.
And so it's natural. And what you're experiencing when you take things on is the joy of creativity, the same joy you did when you were a little child or the first time a little child rides a bike. No one can replace the joy of getting airborne. Even though you've fallen many times, bam, you are talking about what all human beings have. And I've lived in bush country of Africa. All over the world, I've seen this. It's a natural thing to us. You're doing what all of us. So I'm giving people the tools to get back to where they were as young children growing up as creative people. And I can share with them some personal things they can do in their lives, I call the secret sauce of creativity, to restore that natural creative part of us. And you will get the joy, even though they're not easy, solving problems that you wouldn't get any other way. It's the highest form of happiness, self-actualization that you did things that were challenging and accomplished it. So what you're doing is exactly what human beings are hardwired to do.
I want you to go back for just a quick second to that guy you were on the golf course with, the guy that maybe sold the $20 or $30 million company, and you said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Not much." And you said, "How is this working out for you so far?" Why is it, do you think, that some people are hardwired that way and some people are hardwired the way you are? Because I think that you're probably at a point in your life where you might be able to say, look, I don't know where you are financially, none of my business or any of that, but you probably could say, I'm at an age, I just don't want to do that. I want to travel. I want to enjoy my life. I don't want to deal with any of the corporate stuff anymore, but you continue on. Why are you wired that way and that CEO is wired differently?
In fairness to them, I never do say, well, how is it going to work out? I mean, I just let it sit there and say, okay, but but here's what neuroscience have taught us. There was a time we thought that human beings, scientists thought we were born with what 4 or 5 billion neurons in our brains. We lose them through our life and then we die. Now, thanks to PET scans, MRIs, imaging of the brain, we now know that as you age, you can actually grow new neurons and new connections in your brain. This has never been known before. You can't grow a new finger, you can't grow a new hip, but you can grow new neurons. And how do you do that? You have to challenge yourself with creative challenges. You can't just work the same crossword puzzle every day. Mm-hmm. You have to, whether it's learning a new language, taking on more challenges, it actually grows brain cells, which of course helps ward off dementia. It helps ward off Alzheimer's and everything. So the point is the whole idea is, I'm just going to relax. I'm going to go to Margaritaville and have margaritas all day and just cash in on my success. Great. And guess what? Your brain is going to go south on you fast. And by the way, their wives will tell me, can you get him a job? He watches too much television. These are highly successful CEOs. So take that time off. That's fine. But get back in the game in some way. And you look at the great people Bill Gates founded a foundation that's changing the world and medical problems in Africa and elsewhere. So, you understand if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So there's great joy.
I appreciate that. There's a little bit of selfish motive to staying active. Also, it keeps your brain engaged and definitely keep you.
You don't want to sit in a wheelchair and drool all over yourself when you're 80. Get engaged. Don't give up.
No,
there's so much out there you can do.
As the son of a almost 91-year-old mom who is still driving and enjoying her life and socializing and playing cards and mahjong with her friends, I will attest to the fact that the more active that you are, the younger that you stay in your life. And I hope, you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans, but I hope to be able to continue and that legacy as well and live in my mom's shadow so that I can certainly live to that age and be as active as she is too.
Well, you have the number one quality because I ran a life insurance company in one of our products, and the number one criteria on longevity is genetics. But you can also tell her that the involvement she gets and what she does is very helpful because I love a little cartoon as a little old lady. She's probably 91 too, saying, the reason I'm driving so fast is because I want to get there before I forget where I'm going. So, but we all lose a certain memory, but the fact remains by staying more active and challenge yourself, you do enhance your ability to remember things. So,
all right. So I know that we touched on some of the secret sauce ideas, but what I want to do is I want to tease my audience into actually reaching out to you to get more information about what those secret sauce ingredients are. I know that oftentimes you'll give another little gift to them by sharing more information. But would you be okay if we don't go in that direction just because?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy. I can just all they have to do is just reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Dan and last name is Steininger. Think of a beer stein, Stein and then Inger. Just send me a quick message on LinkedIn. Give me your questions. I'll share some of what I call the secret sauce of creativity, because having it in your personal lives and what creative people do, nothing difficult, natural to you. But you can start practicing those things tomorrow. And you're going to take, as you have, Doug, the joy of creativity in your life. It'll give you a whole different perspective. Even the worst challenges that come to you, having those ability to respond creatively to the inevitable problems of life it changes the whole world for you. And it is what we are hardwired to do as humans. So I'll be happy to share that. I also do a newsletter, bi-monthly newsletter, and costs them anything. You can sign up for that. You'll get some creativity tips every month. Probably more focused on business, by the way.
That's awesome. So what I'm going to do is so that you guys in our community, so you don't have to remember or spell or anything, I'm going to actually put a link directly in the show notes. And if you don't know where the show notes are, then just go over to the cover art on the podcast that you're listening to, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, wherever you're listening to this show. Just click the link in the show notes that's either going to be directly to Dan's LinkedIn. You can send him a direct message through LinkedIn. If you want to put secret sauce in the subject line, I think he'll be clued in that the nice guys had sent you over there. Or we're going to put also the link to his website there, his contact me page as well. Dan, I so appreciate your wisdom, your inspiration, all that you brought to our community today. Thank you for staying the extra time. I thought we were going to be somewhere around 30 minutes, and you did a great job of not only keeping our audience's attention, I'm sure, but kept my attention too, which is sometimes a little hard for this guy that might have a little bit of ADHD going on in his world.
Well, I'm going to blame it all on you because you asked some very profound questions, Doc, and that's your fault.
All right. Well, I'll blame it on me too, Dan. Well, thank you for sharing. Thanks for being here on the show today.
Take care.
Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice or the power of a good brainstorming session, brought to you by some of the secret sauce that Dan left with us today. Make sure you check the link in the show notes for all of the information on how to get in touch with Dan. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Thanks for listening to the Nice Guys on Business. Please go to patreon.com/niceguys. And for as little as $1 a month, you can help support this show. You remember that thing down in Panama, right? Come on, you owe them.